Host: The United States wants to reach a peace agreement before agreeing to any security guarantees for Ukraine. According to Politico, citing sources, Secretary of State Marco Rubio informed European allies about this. According to the publication's sources, during a phone conversation with European officials, Rubio stated that US President Donald Trump would negotiate long-term security guarantees for Ukraine, but at a later stage. As Politico writes,
Trump stated that he would not invite the leader of Ukraine to the White House until an agreement is signed.
Host: At the same time, US State Department spokesperson Tommy Pigott refuted the interpretation of Rubio's comments.
Rubio's spokesperson, along with the entire Trump administration, has made it clear that security guarantees must be part of any peace agreement, something he has repeatedly stated both publicly and privately.
Host: Meanwhile, the Times reports that the Kremlin is thwarting all efforts by the US and Ukraine and has no intention of making concessions. It is noted that Moscow has shown not the slightest interest in any agreement that does not meet all its demands, despite several days of diplomatic marathon involving American, European, Russian, and Ukrainian officials. The publication cites comments from Kremlin representatives. Thus, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov stated, Moscow will reject any plan that does not rule out Ukraine's accession to NATO, does not provide for the transfer of territories to Russia, and does not allow the Kremlin to limit the size of the Ukrainian army. And the press secretary of the Russian dictator, Dmitry Peskov, when asked whether peace is near, replied, "It is too early to talk about that." The Telegraph writes that, despite Trump pushing for a deal on Ukraine, peace will not come quickly. As former US ambassador to Ukraine, Bridget Brink stated, Russian dictator Vladimir Putin is not ready for peace.
Bridget, there are no signs that Russia wants to make a deal, and that's the point. Peace at any cost, which the US now seems to be leaning toward, is not real peace.
Host: As Michael Bloomberg, the founder of Bloomberg Agency, writes, an unfavorable agreement would pose a threat not only to Ukraine but also to the interest of the United States itself. He notes that if territorial concessions were approved, Russia would gain a military advantage that would threaten Europe. The Pentagon would likely have to increase its support for NATO allies with both troops and weapons, which would leave fewer resources for containing China in the Indo-Pacific region. According to Michael Bloomberg, if the Russian dictator violates the agreement, Washington will either have to confront Russia, which carries the risk of dragging the United States into a more complicated war, or end up as a paper tiger. Let us recall that a scandal recently emerged, putting the negotiations at risk. This happened due to the leak of a phone conversation between Trump's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, and high-ranking Russian negotiators in October. In one of the recordings, Witkoff told Putin's aide, Yuri Ushakov, that he had the deepest respect for the Russian dictator, and also suggested that the Kremlin flatter Trump for his peace efforts. Amid this scandal, Donald Trump abandoned the deadline for Ukraine to accept the peace plan. The American president backed away from the previously set date, which was supposed to be November 27th,